While this wasn't the first game this season the Bucks played without Giannis, it was the first the Bucks played without Giannis for a stretch of upcoming games. An overtime game, a winnable game that the Bucks let slip away. There were some positives to come out of this loss and some things we want to see the Bucks continue to do more of and less of going forward. We'll get into all of that on today's show.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. Not in the galaxy, though. Apparently, we got a message that someone used in the galaxy. Can't do that. Not in the galaxy. #1 sports podcast network on earth. Your team every day. I'm Camille Davis, an NBA analyst with the Locked On Network and co-host of the Technical Foul podcast. Joining me is Frank Madden, founder of brewhoop.com, longtime voice of the pod. And we appreciate you for tuning in and making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. And on today's show, we'll break down what happened in the Bucks 123-114 overtime loss to the Sixers. Some standout players, some things that were good, but not quite good enough. And then some things we want to see the Bucks continue to do more of and less of going forward. But Frank, the Bucks got off to a really slow start in this game, but found a good rhythm in the second quarter to kind of flip the game in their favor heading into the second half. Bucks did win the third quarter, but then the Sixers fought back in the fourth to take the lead. Bucks punch back. Next thing you know, it's overtime, and the Sixers just seem to have more answers than the Bucks did down the stretch. What were your initial thoughts of how the team played tonight without Giannis in the lineup?
I mean, watching, especially early on, when they were struggling to score points, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, well, they've been a pretty mediocre team with Giannis. And so the next 2 weeks feel like they could get really ugly having to play without him. And, even I say mediocre with Giannis, that's an aggregate, right? Like you look at on-off numbers, right? Like it's night and day, like Giannis on versus off is like a 20 point per 100 difference. So it's not to say like they can't, score points or outscore the other team when Giannis is playing. But he can't play every minute, even when he's healthy. So it's obviously been a challenge, so far this season. They just, again, feel like the thing that I've said in previous years, which is my greatest critique of Doc Rivers, like they just feel like they are less than the sum of their parts. And right now their parts aren't adding up to a whole lot. And so the wins are obviously not adding up, especially with Giannis now on the shelf for, hopefully only 1 or 2 weeks. But I mean, the offense was just rough. I think the first quarter, honestly, I think they were like 1 of 6 from 3. So a lot of it's just like, well, they are super dependent on threes, especially without Giannis. And they obviously did not do really any damage there in the first quarter. So I was like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And the Sixers did make some three. I think the Sixers were like plus 15 from 3 in the first quarter, and they were up 13, I think. So, they dug themselves a hole, and, frustrating start, like the Sixers start small. Doc Rivers decides to start Bobby Portis with Miles Turner and look, Paul George may be kind of washed, but like he's not have Bobby Portis defend him washed.
He's not leave wide open to get into a rhythm washed at this point.
Yeah. So, I think he scored like 11 points in the first few minutes, and, like Bobby Portis like didn't even know like where the play was half the time.
That one defensive play where I think it was Miles who yelled out like Bobby to get his attention. Like Paul George is right there. Like I don't know what Bobby was looking around at, but it was disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, Doc, you don't have to start Bobby. Like this isn't like this is the starting 5 that you've that you've been able to like make a bunch of hay with, and you got to stick with them no matter what. You can play matchups with your 4 with Giannis out. They did make that change at halftime, but it was frustrating, obviously, that you started off not doing that. So that was a frustrating start to the game. But I mean, it felt like, and I'm guessing we'll say this a lot over the next couple of weeks. It feels like, this is Ryan Rollins' team now without Giannis, and that's a great thing to say. It feels great to say that about Ryan Rollins. I think he's at almost 30 points per game in the 3 games or whatever he's played without Giannis this year. He was tremendous tonight. Didn't necessarily have a fast start along with everybody else, but whatever it was, 32 points, 14 assists.
Career high assists for Ryan Rollins in this one.
Kudos to him with, the playmaking. Again, he was the engine of the offense, and it just felt like, man, it felt like they had to just sort of survive when he was not on the floor. The weird part was, you look at the box score, I think he was minus 15.
Second worst plus minus, right behind Bobby, which was kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah. So that like really did not pass the eye test, because it felt like, when Cole Anthony was in, like they were just teetering on the brink of disaster, at every turn. So it was a weird game in that regard. Again, like, you always got to balance sort of like eye test versus like what the box score is telling you about what happened when. I think probably a lot of those minuses showed up in that first quarter stint when they went down big early. And then with the bench, they did make that kind of early second quarter comeback. Bobby Portis was a big part of that. So yeah, I mean, it felt like they were in zone defense like half the game, because things got so bad so quick that they were basically just like, oh crap, we just gotta dare them to find open threes and hope they don't make that many. And honestly, like, that was a big part of getting them back in the game, because Philly, I think, missed a lot of open threes. And unfortunately, in overtime, they made a couple, and, the Bucks just kind of didn't have enough juice left to try to scratch and claw their way back to be competitive. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just, this is a team, like, they're, even with Giannis, like they're not going to dominate other teams. Like, they're going to have to like eke out games. We've seen them eke out. A lot of their wins have been eke out wins against teams that are not very good. And now, obviously, they've had now a few opportunities. Cleveland is good. You had a chance against that team, couldn't make anything happen at the end of that game. You obviously have lost some frustrating games, over the past couple of weeks. And this is just another one that you can kind of add to the list. They had a chance to win this game, and it would have been a really important win, just given kind of the circumstance around them. But yeah, I mean, they certainly look like a team that, let's just say I'm not, I had them 43 wins coming into the season. And I thought early in the season, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be wrong. And now I'm thinking like, oh, I don't want to be wrong overshooting it, which if Giannis misses, 20 games, it feels like 43 wins might be a stretch with this group. But yeah, so it's just, they're in not a great place right now, just as far as being able to put together, consistent kind of quarter to quarter effort, on both ends. And again, I guess we should just try to talk more about Ryan Rollins, because at least that's one positive thing. But otherwise, just not enough guys.
Yeah, not enough. One thing that really stood out to me in this game was just like rebounding, right? Because that's been a point of conversation for this team throughout the season, because it's been a weak point for them. And when I was seeing like Andre Drummond out there, and I was like, okay, the boards might be a problem, even though he was like their only real big, because Embiid was out, Bona was out in this game as well. So it's like, okay, if he's in foul trouble, maybe not. But like, throughout the first 3 quarters of the game, I thought the Bucks did a pretty good job on the glass. Like, the Sixers only had 5 offensive rebounds through the first 3 quarters. In that fourth quarter, though, they had 4 offensive rebounds alone. So they almost matched what they had in the first 3 quarters in that fourth quarter, got some second chance opportunities. And Tyrese Maxey was just really on one in this game. It didn't feel like the Bucks had any answer for anything that he was doing in this game. Career high in points for him in this one as well. But this isn't Locked On Sixers. We ain't gonna spend too much time on giving Tyrese Maxey his props. What we do want to give props to is Ryan Rollins, because he did show something in this game. I think a silver lining of this loss, and honestly, the opportunity that's been in front of him. So a little bit more on Ryan Rollins and some things we saw from some other key players on the Bucks right after this. But first, a quick word from our friends over at Quo, because let's talk about something that every business owner knows too well: missed calls. When a customer tries to reach you and you cannot get through, that's just money slipping away. Quo, spelled Quo, is the smarter way to run your business communication so you never miss an opportunity. Quo is the #1 business phone system built for 2025, not 1995. It's simple, it's modern, and it's designed to help you communicate faster, look more professional, and stay connected wherever you're working. Quo works right from an app on your phone or computer, so no extra devices, no clunky landlines, and if you cannot answer, Quo's AI agent will jump in. It can qualify leads, route calls, and make sure that no customer is ever left hanging, even after hours. So it makes small businesses feel big and big businesses feel efficient. So it's no wonder that over 90,000 businesses are already using Quo. Try Quo for free at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. And yes, you can even keep your existing number. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Also, a word from our friends over at DoorDash because the NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. So, whether you're just watching for the highlights, word to Adam Silver, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night feel even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the bag drop. So every time an NBA player scores 50 points in the game, so Tyrese Maxey gonna get y'all something tonight, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day. And you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. That fan bag actually has stuff in it that you want. So I'm talking about player-inspired drip and exclusive gear. But what I love so much about DoorDash is that it's not just food. You can get everything delivered. So next time someone goes off for 50, use the promo code NBA50 the next day. So tomorrow for Tyrese Maxey, 50% off or on DoorDash with DoorPass or with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the big drop. Dash Pass members only 50% off up to $10 a day after a 50-point game with the promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashinyourbag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. We appreciate you for tuning in, making Locked On Bucks that first listen every single day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And as always, got to shout out the everydayers who tune in Monday through Friday and on the weekends after post-game shows as well. But Frank, we mentioned Ryan Rollins. He was the bright spot in this game. Like in my notes, I just wrote, Ryan Rollins, have yourself a game. Like we need it. So we mentioned that he tied his career high in points tonight with 32. He had 32 points previously this season against the Warriors in that very first game the Bucks had without Giannis this season. But a career high in assists for him as well, while only having 3 turnovers to go with the 14 assists. And a question that I have for Ryan Rollins going into this segment of games without Giannis was, okay, it's going to be even more put on his shoulders. It's not only on his shoulders, like everyone on the team needs to contribute a bit more. But Ryan is going to be the guy who's a lead ball handler. He's going to be a guy the team counts on to go and get a bucket, to set other guys up, and to also play defense on the other players' top guys. So it's just been a lot put on Ryan Rollins' plate. And I was curious to see how he would respond to it, especially with him moving up the scouting reports of opposing teams. And he seemed up for the challenge tonight. Again, a little bit of a slow start for him, but once he got into that rhythm, it just seemed like, again, Ryan Rollins is somebody. That's what I keep coming away with. Like this kid is a player.
Yeah, I mean, 3-level scoring. Ironically, this is probably one of his worst 3-point shooting nights. He was 2 for 8. And so in a weird way, it's kind of cool, encouraging, because he's been on such a 3-point heater to be able to put up these types of scoring numbers, on 50% shooting from the field, right? So it's not like he was out there chucking.
Mm-hmm.
He was 11 out of 18 on 2s. And, when he needed, there are various points where they needed a bucket. He got to his mid-range shot, hit the mid-ranger. He's obviously, we've talked, ad nauseum about how he gets to his left hand and finishes with his left hand. He finishes with his right hand. Mm-hmm. He had a couple like rim outs, that easily could have gone down as well. It just kind of had bad luck attacking the basket. So, I think at this point, the one thing he's not doing consistently is getting the line a lot. So, I mean, like if we're going to be greedy about Ryan Rollins and his development, I guess we could say, if he can like get a little craftier while we're being, greedy and demanding here, and while we see the Bucks continue to lose when he's playing really well, maybe we'll say like, oh, Ryan, now you need to get 40 and you need to draw a bunch of free throws too. No pressure, buddy. So that may be the one thing we haven't seen as much from him. We've seen the 3-point shooting. We've seen the mid-range game. We've seen the ambidextrous finishing, or amphibious finishing, as our friend Marcus Johnson would say. So, yeah, I mean, he's just showing a lot. And, I think the big thing is just like, hey, Ryan, we need you to go carry the load and go get us buckets. And I think, especially the version we saw last year, it felt like he could get 2 shots like we're seeing now, but he couldn't necessarily do it, every possession, every other possession. It had to be more like picking his spots, or, when he did try to really force stuff, he would over dribble, and, it felt like it wasn't as natural. And now it just feels like he's just in a comfort zone, knowing kind of the pacing of the offense. And, if it isn't there initially, he's patient. The ball's going to end up back in his hands, especially like Giannis, right? It's not like they have other like ball handling creators really, which is a problem, but it's something that certainly means that Ryan's going to get a lot of touches and he's going to get as many shots as he wants. So yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. It's going to be an even bigger deal if he can help them claw out some wins with Giannis out. I mean, that's really kind of the mandate now, is how do you just steal some games? Because, it's now down to 500, and, I don't know where they sit in the East right now, but, I mean, they have to figure out, like, how do you avoid, forget home court, like, how do you avoid a play-in is really, I think, to me, that was always like, if you get to a play-in and have a chance at getting the second round, like that's probably a realistically positive outcome. I'm not saying that's enough to make Giannis happy or whatever, but just given the group you have and given the coaching staff you have, like that's probably a pretty good outcome.
Yeah, the Bucks are currently 11th in the East still, so they didn't fall. But part of that is because the East is so jumbled between, golly, really, I mean, 2 through 11. Like the Raptors are second in the East right now at 10-5. Bucks are 11th at 8-8. So it's only a few games there, and then that 12 spot. You got the Hornets at 4-11. So it feels like that 11 spot in the East right now is kind of like that low point for teams that are seriously competing. No disrespect to Charlotte or anything like that. But I mean, that 12, 13, 14, 15 spot is Charlotte at 4-11, Brooklyn at 2-12, the Pacers at 2-13, and the Wizards at 1-13. Pacers, as we know, have had just terrible injury luck. The Wizards and the Nets, as we know, they're already looking ahead to next year. And the Hornets, I mean, they got some interesting young guys over there. They just had some unfortunate injury luck along the way too. So everything's still in play for the Bucks. The hope is just that over these next few games, they're going to be able to win enough so that when Giannis does return, when Kevin Porter Jr. returns to the lineup, they're not looking at a spot where it's like, dang, how in the world did the Hornets or somebody like that pass them in the standings? So that's the hope, I think, for the Bucks. I said I wanted to play kind of a little game called like more of, less of, about what we want to see more and less of from the Bucks going forward. One thing I do want to say is, as like a preview to that before we get into it next season or next segment, I want to see more of third quarter Kuz, because that's what the Bucks are going to really need from this team, or from Kuz going forward without Giannis in the lineup. I'll elaborate a little bit more on that and also get Frank's thoughts on what the Bucks need to do more of and less of right after this. First, a word from PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. So don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both, there is no better time to jump in on the action. So if you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 different player stats. And if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and of course, Wisconsin. I use PrizePicks during football Sundays, especially when it's a Bucks Packers overlap. Love that. Plus, if one of your players ever leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot will save your lineup for a loss. Came in clutch for me when Giannis got injured against the Cavaliers. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. More of, less of. What do the Bucks need to do more of or less of? You can give us both. You can give us one or the other. But I mentioned third quarter Kuz. What I loved about Kyle Kuzma in the third quarter of this game was how aggressive he was consistently driving the ball. He was getting to the rim. He had a segment of the game where he had a personal 7-0 run. I love Kuz when he drives, when he cuts, when he's in movement. I don't love Kuz as much when he is just trying to solely be a catch and shoot 3-point guy, which we know he has to take the shots. It's just like continue to put pressure on opposing defenses. Like Kyle Kuzma led the team in free throw attempts in this game with 7 of them. I mean, they only had 13 in total. So he was over half of your free throw attempts. Just need that energy from Kuz going forward. Another thing I personally want to see more of, and I've been banging the drum on this, more threes. I want to see more threes for the Bucks go up. They only put up 36 threes in tonight's game against the Sixers. I don't think that that's enough. I think they got to continue to get more up in that second quarter when you really saw things flip. They were knocking the shots down, but they also got up 11 3-pointers in that second quarter. They went 7 of 11 from 3 in the second quarter after going 1 of 6 in the first. In the third quarter of this game, they were 1 of 5 from 3. Then you get to the fourth quarter and then they're 5 of 9. Like just got to consistently see them getting up. I would ideally 10 threes or so a quarter, but those are a couple things for me where I'm like, I just want to see more of this. Frank, what are some things you want to see more of or less of from the Bucks going forward during the next 2 weeks or so?
Well, AJ Green was 3 for 5 from 3 tonight. I think part of, the lack of increased 3-point shooting, you can tie to the fact that the Bucks really haven't made strides in getting AJ more 3-point shots. And, part of the problem is the way I phrased it there was intentional, getting AJ more 3-point shots. AJ is not obviously a guy that you're just going to give the ball to, run high pick and roll, and he'll pull up and shoot threes a lot, right? He is a dynamic shooter in terms of being able to shoot on the move, shoot off the catch, etc. But he is a guy that has to kind of get those looks in the flow of the offense. We obviously see him, especially with Giannis, he sets a lot of inverted screens. We see him kind of do different things where he'll set a real screen, he'll set a ghost screen to try to keep the defense, off guard to try to pop out to that 3-point line. I would have liked to see it, even more tonight. He had one big one in the last few minutes of regulation, I think it was, when they were, down. I forget how many they were down, but I think he may have tied it on a 3.
Yeah, when he did like the pump fake, then they jumped by and then he went back up with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, on the one hand, I want to be careful because I've seen like on Twitter, people like will say like, oh, he's got to shoot 10 threes a game. And, my 2 cents is like, he's never going to shoot 10 3-pointers per game because he can't create threes for himself well enough, or at least not yet. But I think that does mean that you have to structure the offense to try to get him more of those types of looks, or, you just have to do a better job going side to side and, kind of running actions that are going to kind of create ball movement, where he obviously is a guy that if he's got a little bit of room, you hope that he'll kind of grip it and rip it. So I think figuring out ways to kind of weaponize AJ a bit more is kind of always sort of like the easy button, right? Like go try to run more plays for AJ Green. As much as, you look at some of the metrics around different guys. I mean, when AJ Green's on the floor, they're way better than when he's not on the floor.
Yeah.
That's held the last couple of years. I think he's a winning basketball player, and all those things. So yeah, I think that's a positive thing. So more AJ Green threes. Can I also say less Gary Trent twos, Camille?
Yes, you definitely can say that.
It's kind of wild when you watch Gary Trent try to drive to the basket. It's crazy to think that he's 6'5", because he looks like he's 5'10" as soon as he gets inside the arc. I mean, it's just so hard. It's just so tough watching him try to create. I mean, there's just so many plays where he looks so helpless, and he's not going to get calls because he looks so overmatched trying to dribble and create shots. And some of these are like hand grenade plays where he's got to kind of dribble it.
Something with it.
He's got to do something with it. And, in theory, part of Gary's strength as a scorer over a guy like AJ is that he can take a handoff, take a couple dribbles, and get to like a mid-range shot. The problem is, like, sometimes when it's like he's one of the guys that you like don't want driving to the basket further than, like, you almost don't want him getting paint touches. That's been a big theme for the Bucks, is like, oh, get paint touches. So you penetrate, drag attention, draw attention, and then they kick it out. With Gary, like, he's only ever really driving to shoot.
He ain't looking to spray at all.
He ain't looking to pass, and especially when he's in those late clock situations. And it's just like, man, I would just rather him take like a tough step back three than take a driving shot. So it's been rough, and the on off metrics are just, I mean, mind-boggling, terrible for Gary. Like, coming into that, it was like -30 on off, which is especially eye-popping given he was starting with the top 4 guys. Like, the top 4 guys are Giannis, AJ, Miles, and Rollins, I think.
Yeah.
So the other 4 starters that Gary was playing with, and I was talking with Eric about it, and Eric rightly pointed out, I was like, well, AJ is now getting the minutes with the normal size lineups, and those lineups have been much better than when they were playing with the 3-guard lineup. But it's like, you don't get to -30 unless you've been bad and have bad luck. Yeah. And so maybe we also say, like, get some good luck for Gary Trent. It's not like he shot the ball like horrendously. I think he's like 38% or something like that coming into tonight. He's under 40 from the field, which isn't surprising given what we were just talking about on his 2-point shots. But they need a better version of Gary. Obviously, I did like some of the defensive playmaking that he had. He was obviously, involved in some good things as well. But it's obviously been tough with Gary. And I think it highlights, I mean, to me, like, the toughest part for the Bucks right now, and this is partly why I'm like not very optimistic about this team this season, regardless of Giannis, is, last year, the 3-guard lineup that we finally saw in the last game against the Pacers, they had the amazing on-off rating. They were part of some of those incredible fourth quarter runs, etc. And all summer we were like, Doc's got to go to that. Like, if he's smart, Doc's going to lean into what worked last year. He did what we wanted, and guess what?
Ain't working.
It's been a disaster. Yeah. Like, we were wrong. Doc tried to do the thing that we all wanted him to do, and it's been a disaster. Like, the 3 of those guys together, like, for whatever Rollins and AJ can do defensively, like, it has not worked. That version of the team cannot stop other teams. They're too small. They don't rebound. Part of that, I think, is, anybody who complained about Brook Lopez as a rebounder, like, hey, guess what? Brook's gone, and take a look at their rebounding stats. Yeah. So, I mean, there's been obviously kind of multiple problems, but it's really hard because, like, Taurean Prince being, like, presumably done for the season, I'm just writing him off. He's out indefinitely. Who knows what the story is, but it's just tough because, like, man, they need Kuzma defensively, which is like a phrase that we should all be like scared to have heard say out loud. They need size defensively to be a little more competitive on the glass and not be totally overwhelmed by some of these bigger wings and stuff. But, like, man, by the same token, like, when Giannis is out there and Kuz is out there with him, defenses do not give a about Kyle Kuzma spotting up behind the 3-point line. I mean, they're going to, like, zone off of him and send extra bodies at Giannis, and it's just going to make it so much harder for Giannis. So the Bucks, I just feel like, man, they are just in this really tough spot right now with the 3. I mean, to be honest, like, right now without Giannis, it's not really a problem because it's like, well, you need offensive talent, and Kuz can run around screens and dive to the basket, and he's not taking up Giannis's spaces, which is something that we've seen him do when they played together. So it's not a problem right now so much because they just need talent. But when Giannis is back, like I just don't think they have a good answer as far as that fifth starter. I think it's got to be Rollins, it's got to be AJ Green, it's got to be Giannis, and it's got to be Miles Turner. It just doesn't feel like there's really an answer. And so, you know, for now, I'll say more and less, Camille. I'll say more zone defense, I guess, because that's kind of one of the few ways that you can mask some of their kind of deficiencies just 1v1 and make it a little bit harder to exploit them, sort of in traditional, just like high pick and roll and some of that type of stuff. But as we saw tonight, I mean, Maxey got his 50.
It didn't matter.
And it didn't really matter, right? Like they were patient, they got to their spots and everything else. So yeah, it's tough. I think, you know, I think if you go back to the summer, you know, not being able to find, you know, like a wing that you could credibly start as at least like a two-way, you know, placeholder type guy that could shoot enough that they couldn't kind of cheat off him entirely. Basically, if Taurean Prince like could actually move his feet still, like Taurean Prince would actually make a lot of sense, like as the fifth starter. But I think obviously we've seen, you know, his defensive limitations over the past year, and now it's all kind of academic since, I mean, who knows, right? Who knows if we'll see him when or if we'll see him again playing in a Bucks uniform. So yeah, they're just in a tough spot, I think, defensively, especially right now. And I was looking at, you know, cleaning the glass. I feel like it felt like the last time I looked, we're like top 10 offense still.
Yeah, no, they dropped.
Now they're 16th, and they're going to be. They had a 104 offensive rating tonight. Don't be confused by the stats. This was actually not a bad defense. It was a 113 defensive rating, which is good for them, and a very bad offensive rating because there was a high pace game tonight. So the offense is kind of quickly looking like a pretty low talent offense without Giannis, and so they're basically below average on both ends right now, and they really don't have an identity. I think that's really the biggest, you know, problem. Like with Giannis, obviously you have something because it's like, well,
it's
just
Giannis,
run things through Giannis, but I think that's a big challenge for them right now is offensively they don't run. They're like 28th in transition points added. They don't shoot many threes. You said it. Their 3-point frequency this year is 39.2. Last year was 39.1% of shots. Yeah. So like all the preseason talk from Doc and others about shooting more threes and hasn't been zero translation into like what we've actually seen on the floor. And I'm not saying it's like easy to just do that. And I've talked about it. Like it's hard to shoot tons of threes when Giannis is, you know, 35 to 40% usage guy and doesn't shoot threes. But you know, on nights like tonight, like they can't create them either when they really need them with Giannis out. So anyway, so not to be like overly negative, I guess maybe let's talk more about Ryan Rollins or something. But yeah, I mean, they're just, you know, they're kind of just, I don't know. Again, like this coaching staff hasn't really had any interesting ideas the last couple of years to get this team to kind of be better than what they are on paper. And it just feels like that's where we're sort of, again, settling into this season. Again, like they're not firing Doc or anything like that, but like where is Doc taking this team? You know, I won't say anything, but you know, I'm not optimistic with what we've seen so far.
Well, we're going to have to continue to take a look at what this looks like. And it does not get easier for the Bucks because the next game for the Milwaukee Bucks is on Saturday against the Detroit Pistons, the Eastern Conference leading Detroit Pistons at this moment. So that was going to be a difficult game if Giannis was healthy. With him out of the lineup, they
don't lose to the Pistons. How many? They've won like 4 straight years every game against the Pistons, right? We can't possibly lose. Oh wait, we don't have Giannis or Pat Connaughton anymore, Camille.
Can't forget the Pat Connaughton.
Oh man,
it's the part.
The Pistons are probably like, all right, we haven't won in like 4 years. We're gonna just like
time to get our lick back.
Murder you dudes without Giannis this weekend. If they win this game, I'll be supremely impressed. So
same.
Go get a W. Go get a W, boys. Impress us for once.
I'm telling you, like let's see what you guys got in this one. But that'll wrap up Locked On Bucks for today. We will be back sometime this weekend. Can't give you it might be late Saturday, it might be early Sunday morning for a recap of that Pistons game. We'll be coming back with the Future Foe Focus with a crossover with other hosts for the Monday show, starting with Portland, going into Miami, and then New York. So that'll wrap up the show for us today. For Frank and myself, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.